earlier, Cheryl, you were mentioning that, we aren't having babies when we were teenagers, which, that's a shocking statement to a lot of people. What? We were having babies as teenagers? And that was the standard. That's when we came to maturity, and that's when you started to have babies way back when. And so now we're pregnant, and we're pregnant in a different time. Often, as in my case, I'm 41. Now this isn't my first, I've had already 2, but at the same time, I'm 41. It's definitely not in my teens.
Yes.
So, and the fact is, more and more women are having it much later. Careers come first, or, just that's the way life was. They didn't have that opportunity. They didn't have that partner, perhaps, until later.
They didn't find their soulmate. Or
which, so there's so many different circumstances now that can be determining that. And, you see it in the papers all the time. The celebrities these days are having them, how many had Kelly Preston just had, how old was she, 46 when she had, I think it was 46.
I believe so.
So, it's more and more, I think, almost commonplace now to be later and much later than what we would consider, before at all. So, we're pregnant. What does that mean now? And why are omegas so important for us now at this stage, now that we are pregnant?
Well, when you're pregnant, the baby's developing. Okay? It gets back to you're creating a lot of new cells, and you're developing their brain, right? Their brain, their senses are within that, everything. So you need the omegas at that point for the growing baby, when the baby's pregnant. Thinking and keeping in mind what you're doing is you're preventing postpartum. You're preventing ADHD, autism, allergies, right? So you're strengthening the body, and that's very valuable because we hear so many people have allergies. And I like to think on the positive note that we can have children later.
Yes.
Like yourself. And we can use the best of everything that we know.
Right.
To make that happen in a healthy, happy way.
Right.
It doesn't mean we can't have our children younger. That still does happen. But if we take what we know, and specifically around the omegas, this can be hugely beneficial to us. So from an avoiding or preventing nature, and during pregnancy for the growing baby. In the 3rd trimester is when the baby, the size is getting much bigger. And the mothers, or let's say young girls, would be in their earlier days up into puberty, would be storing their omegas in their adipose tissues. That's why we have more fat cells.
Right.
So the adipose tissues, the baby will then draw out of that in the 3rd trimester to do that, that further developing the brain, and at that time, because then when they come out, they do everything on their own.
Right.
Well, mostly everything on their own. There's still further development, but they have to be in that position. But what if the mother doesn't have them?
Right.
And that's an issue. If the mother doesn't have them, then the baby isn't going to get them.
Okay.
Right.
Let me just pause there for a second to understand. So when they were younger, like when we were younger in our teens, we have this naturally in our things stored from the diet that we've been eating.
If we have a good diet.
Okay, so there's a key point right there. If you've had the diet that supported that.
Yes.
And then what happens? What happens to this stuff that's stored in there if we're not having the babies until later?
Good question. You know what? It'll depend on what you're doing. What if you go on a low-fat diet? What if the body needs them for your own brain functioning?
Right. What about stress and all these kind of things? Does that deplete?
That may very well deplete it.
Okay.
And they won't be there. They won't be there for the baby.
Right. Because you're using it for yourself.
You ended up using it for yourself.
Right.
For those reasons that we mentioned, and then it wouldn't be there for you.
Okay.
Or developing the baby.
Right. So it's not that it's just not there for the baby, it's also eventually not there for you. You are using these. It's not like it's something that just stays there magically for the rest of your life
No, that whole
Once
storage, the adipose storage, is for that third trimester. It's
Right.
for the baby.
Right.
And we store these while they're part of every cell. We'll store them ourselves and have them circulating in our body for
Right.
us to use. But if we're not consuming them, the body will take what
Right.
it needs. It's intelligent. It's a miracle.
Right.
It will take that and it will use it up. It's like any storage that we have. We'll eventually have to dip into the,
Right.
back to the back of the cupboard
Right.
to get the food that, now that, we haven't been bringing in more food. So
Right.
eventually you start using up everything that we have.
Okay, so that makes sense. Now I understand why is it so different from when we, we're having babies as teenagers versus older. Why is it not there? So that makes sense. Can we go back into the postpartum situation now a little bit? Because now this is, we've had the baby's now born, beautiful, and I can, actually I'm going to share a little bit of a story because this is my third, so I've already had two, and I did the two in my 20s, my late 20s, but still fairly, standard kind of, I guess it was, I didn't wait too long, but after actually already my first, I had what they maybe called just baby blues at the time, but was postpartum depression, but I didn't know it. After the second, which I had quite quickly, one after the other, they were a year and a half apart, definitely had even more so, and actually was diagnosed clinically depressed at that point.
Right.
So that was something very serious, and I had no idea why that happened to me, or why it happens to any mother, new mom. Why do we have to go through this? And one of the things that started to make a lot of sense once I started taking OWN, the omega-3 product that is the mammalian source, it actually cleared up a lot of things. I mean, I was no longer clinically depressed at that point once the product came into my life. However, there was still a lot of things lingering, the brain fog that never seemed to clear after, having the kids. Because and it's funny, now that I remember, I actually used to tell people, well, I gave my brain to my kids. Don't you know? That's what happens. You literally, and people say, oh yeah, that's just mom brain, right?
How funny is
you
that?
You give your brain to your kids, so that's why you don't have it anymore. So to me, it was just, well, that's the way it is. Until I actually started taking the product and my brain fog cleared up, which I didn't even really realize I had until I no longer had it, which was, a typical, I think, of a lot of women who start taking the product and realizing this is the way the world is supposed to look. This is the way I'm supposed to feel. You don't even realize that you're not feeling great, because I was no longer clinically depressed. I was fine in that sense. However, I still wasn't at my optimum level of being and well-being. So let's talk a little bit about why that happens, because it makes sense to me now that I know what omega-3s do for my body, but at the time, I just didn't know, and I have said it to many people, if I had known, or if this product had existed when I had my kids the first time, I'm confident I would not have gone through postpartum depression, and I am 100% confident that I'm not going to go through it now, even though I'm 41, and I'm going to be going through the same experience. So it's going to be a different scenario now, because I am replenishing.
Yes, you are replenishing, and that's the most important piece here. Give your brain away.
Yes.
But not your whole brain.
Right.
Or at least consume enough of the healthy fats or the omegas to fill back up your brain. So it's almost like you're draining more than you're giving, and that becomes valuable. I mean, even for myself, the stage I started taking was still after my children as well. Would I have loved to have taken it before? Absolutely, that's the time to start. But no time is of the, now is the time to start, anytime. But, I felt in the first day, the fog lift. I called it, I felt taller.
Yes.
And you know,
it's
now
you
I
can
know
see over the clouds.
it's
Then all of a sudden.
mental clarity, and realize, you know, I, like some of other people I've been connecting with, I don't remember my childhood like other people do as well.
Right.
And, you know, some of these things are catching up with us. So we're going to hear this more often, and we're going to hear more, like, you know, problems conceiving, more postpartum depression. We're going to hear about this because of the more processed foods, the more toxicity, the more we don't convert, the more we're getting all these unhealthy fats, or let's say suboptimal, like fish oils, perhaps, and refined and things like that. But it
is that replenishing that
it replenishes.
So
it could
valuable.
Be calming to some people.
Yes.
You know, some people will say, I just feel calmer. Really what they're doing is they're just more clear at the same time.
Yes.
And they can manage the stress that much better.
And can I tell you?
Yes.
As a new mom, these are all very good words to be hearing. Calm, handling stress, energized, you know, clear thinking. I mean, these are all the things that you want when you have this new life that you are now taking care of. Because, there were times that, I you know, I've had my guilty, I'm sorry I did that. You know, I wasn't here.
Yes.
But now I know with this one, you know, it's not going to be the same.
It's a different scenario.
It's a completely different scenario because not only, you know, I've been taking this for almost 4 years now. I have replenished my stores completely. So I did it in that pre-planning, I guess, stage without knowing it. I was just doing it for my own health and well-being. But I have had that baseline. So again, I was lucky in that sense this time around. However, if I had have had it at any of those other stages with my first two, I would have been very grateful. So this is why I'm sharing this knowledge, is because not only am I experiencing this pregnancy right now, but I've gone through pregnancy twice before with a lot of the typical, for lack of better words, side effects of pregnancy that I would love to help others prevent by simply taking, you know, one extra step. I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of other things that are going to be beneficial for your pregnancy. However, this is one key step that we can all add in.
It's a very valuable step. And if you just have this one missing, you will feel the difference.
Yes.
You will feel the difference because it's that valuable.